right, here we go. First episode. How's it going, everybody? My name's Fernando Lopez. For those of you who don't know, I am an independent filmmaker. Well, 8 years a security professional, all-around martial artist. Just recently started training to be a boxing coach, and most notably, but not always most successfully financially, I am an actor and a movie director. Now, I figure I make this episode just to kind of give an introduction to who I am. I start posting a little bit of my trailers and some of my work. So I'll give you the bullet point origin. So I was born and raised in San Francisco, California, and I joined the Marine Corps in 2017, served till 2021. I lived in Riverside, California for about a year, and at some point I had these fantasies about getting in film, because I remember growing up, I've always been really interested in movies, whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger movies to John Carpenter's Escape from New York. And at some point, the process of how these are made caught my interest quite a bit. And you know, I felt like I had a good chance to act too. I've been told by one of my old acting coaches way back in the day that I have a very castable face. The fact that I am prior service is a good asset, especially they need guys to, like, you know, get shot by John Wick or The Equalizer, and I kind of envision myself in that. Oh, there was also another detail. I kind of omitted that. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was training to be a bodyguard or an executive protection specialist, which is, I did this course online from this kind of big name on Instagram, but he's kind of a more popular name in the executive protection world. I got one of their certs and learned a little bit about their, you know, the procedures of walking with clients and what that lifestyle entails. And you essentially are a chauffeur with a pistol. And there's a lot of times where the client would want to go, let's say, to Hawaii or something, and within 2 weeks, actually, no, within like 2 days, you're like, hey, we're going to Hawaii, you're coming with us. And we have to be like, oh, okay, sure. And you can't really have like a relationship or family. You get paid very well, but you wouldn't have your own freedom. You're just their you know, chauffeur, essentially. Where they go, you go. And in my gut and in my heart, I felt like I was an artist, and I had a lot of stories I wanted to tell. Now, so I kind of abandoned that type of financial security, and I did some, you know, low tier security work in plazas and outdoor plazas, and did some bar security work in not so great areas in Riverside. It was kind of a low point for me. I felt like after my contract finished in the Marine Corps, I was just kind of like, what now? No one really guided me on how to get on my feet after leaving, you know, 3-7. Because my MOS, I was an 0311, and 4 years I was stationed in 29 Palms. I did one combat deployment in 2018. And then just quietly left, you know, COVID happened. It kind of was a very weird spot for the company, where half the guys that still had some time on their contract, they went to Japan, but then had to get quarantined, and then they went to Australia and got quarantined there. And then the rest of us were just kind of left just in the barracks, just waiting until our contract was up, and then I just quietly left. I have a lot of injuries. on my knee. I don't hear very well here, and I'm also I got those two claimed, and I also have lower lumbar pain, and I have a fracture in my mid back. I'm still trying to appeal for a higher disability rate, but I do get something from the government. So I got a lot of physical trauma. Unfortunately, it's just, it is what it is. But I didn't leave that to be what hindered me from my goals. And when I was living in Riverside, I was with an agency that they wanted me to go in person and do self-tapes. It was a very old school method, but I did get to audition for some fairly big projects. Not all of them called to me inside, just more because my last name's Lopez. They wanted me to audition for roles that were ethnically, I thought, stereotypical, like an uncle role for a TV pilot called Primo, which means uncle in Spanish. I'm not that fluent in Spanish, to be quite honest. It's for long reasons. My family speaks it. I don't. Very broken. I speak a little bit more Portuguese than anything. Just my parents used to really scream at each other in Spanish, and I just kind of blocked that in my head, and I was never accustomed to it. That wasn't like an insulting type language. It's a whole thing. I think I could talk about it another time, but I'm getting to the point of all this. So I watched a lot of TV. I watched a lot of animated stuff like Spider-Man, Batman the Animated Series, Gargoyles. Those are all, and X-Men. Those were all cool series that I would watch in the 90s growing up. Fast forward to, when I'm my last year in 3-7, back when HBO Max was a new thing, they were doing this thing where they would premiere a movie at midnight and simultaneously have it in theaters. So I think me and a couple of guys, one of them is my roommate to this day, and he's in a few of my movies actually. We would show up in one of our rooms at midnight and watch either Godzilla versus Kong, Mortal Kombat, Zack Snyder's Justice League. So that was kind of a cool thing that we got to do, and I kind of missed that feeling, So anyways, I went off on a huge tangent. I am so sorry. I forgot the name of this agency, but I left them because I was moving out of California, because I really was barely making ends meet as a single guy living in a 500 square foot apartment with one job. Well, technically two. And they're both security. One was security at Riverside Plaza, where I was always encountering really demented transients, or I was working at Temecula Stampede as a bouncer there. And for those of you who don't know, it's a winery county up there, but it's also kind of the country crowd. It's pretty cool, although it has its roadhouse moments of fighting and broken glass and sketchy stuff in the parking lots. Unfortunately, I was pretty good at that type of environment, although it's very lowbrow for me. And I would do these auditions here and there while still trying to pay my rent. And it was very expensive. It's still as expensive to live as a single guy alone in California. But at the time, I did not want to go back to San Francisco and live with my father because I still had serious issues with him. I didn't like the idea of leaving the Marine Corps just to go back and being my father's roommate. And he was a very, controlling, narcissistic guy who, he always pitted me against my sister and my mother, and, they both, and my mother has her own problems too. So I came from a very broken family. So I wanted to go away from that. So I did some auditions. I'm trying to remember what they were. The most notable one was for Blue Beetle, not for the character, but for a villain role. So I think, allegedly, this is what my agent told me at the time, is that whoever's casting liked the fact that I had a military background, and at the time I had some Jesus action going with a long hair and a beard, and I read for the part of this lieutenant role, and it was for Blue Beetle. They never called me back. I thought, but they gave me like a day's notice. It was super last minute. I thought I nailed it, but eventually the villain part went to someone a lot more famous, a different famous Hispanic actor, from what I understand. I never saw the movie. I didn't hear great things about it, to be quite honest. That was a very notable experience. And eventually, afterwards, I got tired of living in California, and I didn't want to be another struggling actor. So I moved to Arizona, where I felt like I had more creative freedom. Now, there's not really a scene out here, but I did feel like I could be a big fish in a small pond. Basically, when I moved out here, I did a few smaller independent films. I mostly played cowboys, to be quite honest. And I kind of leaned into that. My first 2 films that I directed, upon the last couple years, I've kind of pushed away from that because I didn't want to just be pigeonholed as that. And getting ranch-like environments are not actually easy. A lot of these old, horse equestrian types are very, I don't want to say territorial, but it's not easy, especially when you're an independent filmmaker and they have this idea that it's going to like scare the horses, that you're going to have all these crews and wires. And a lot of times, my first movie, Vega, I shot on my phone because, I had a DP once and he bailed because he was a little misinformed about the way I shoot, the way a project of this nature, being that it's not it has to be some ASU capstone with 15 people, and there has to be just 15 people doing nothing and 20 minutes on one shot. I don't do that. I'm very much a guerrilla style filmmaker with one camera and one guy. We just switch off depending on who's acting. But at some point, when I did the movie Big John, and these projects are all on Amazon Prime, I realized I couldn't get a ranch. I couldn't find someone that knew someone. So my roommate suggested, what if the ranch just got sold off in the story? And then I made this movie. It's a very small movie, short, about a guy coming back home was kind of bitter about his past in the military, and he finds out that someone he served with is dating his sister. And at the same time, he's trying to fight off some property developer who's sending low-level thugs to harass him and his mother. And eventually, my character and the other character he has beef with, they fight, and then they eventually team up. I think that movie could use a good reboot, personally. Because I think the concept is there, but I think I could have done it better, to be quite honest. That's why I started making The Rendezvous. Sorry, my transmitter died. In 2025, I released a small action film called The Rendezvous, which is, all the characters I play are kind of loosely based on me, but almost like a what-if scenario. What if I was this type of character? What if... And in this case, The Rendezvous was kind of like a back-to-basics type thing. I wanted to stop doing stuff where I had to wear a cowboy hat, because then it started looking cheesy and gimmicky. And I realized I have my own personality as is. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a big dude. I box. I have pains in places. What if I owned up to that and I made that part of my persona a little bit? So my character, Luke Burgos, is a disabled vet working in luxury retail security. Not too far from reality. And he is just kind of going through the motions, and then at some point he beats up the wrong guys in a parking lot, and those guys are connected to this villain who is an arms dealer, and he has these capabilities to locate numbers. So he calls Luke Burgos, and you find out in the end of the film that the two characters have a connection with Luke's past. He blackmails him, draining his money from his bank account to literally go look for a guy in Scottsdale who has some flash drive. He doesn't know what's in the flash drive, but the next thing you know, my character is hunted by different assassins as a loose end that has to be gotten rid of. But my character ends up fighting them off through the skin of his teeth, and then he goes on the run in Arizona. In the meantime, he has to locate this hacker played by a model actress that I emailed named Rachel Pizzolatto. We have this brief fight scene, and then we team up. And then she breaks into the flash drive, and while this is all happening, a small FBI team are looking for Luke. And then they realize that Luke is being set up because the media is kind of painting him out to be kind of public enemy number one. So it's kind of like a very low budget The Fugitive. Now my latest film, The Rendezvous Vendetta, has having its premiere this Saturday, so in like 4 days from now. And I invested in a camera called the Z-Cam, which is a rig that they've used to film the car chases in the last two Mission Impossible films. And the body alone usually goes for $3,000. I got it for $1,000. And I've been using it since. It's a badass little camera. It does really well in low light because a lot of times I film at night because, not a lot of people are out being nosy to what we're doing. And it looks really cool, I gotta be honest. Now, I have a bad tendency of going off tangent on certain things, so please forgive me if I don't seem focused on one subject. But the reason I started making my own movies, specifically action with some comedy in it, and I put some emotional subtext there because I don't always have the budget for, explosions and, sci-fi elements, although that's gonna change very soon actually. So not trying to give away, but it's kind of cool what's going to be happening. I've been acting for a long time, even before the Marine Corps, and I would do like extra day player parts for maybe these tech commercials in San Francisco, and they put me in the background. I was never always picked. I always felt like I never really got a chance to showcase what I could do as an actor. Very few filmmakers, very select amount, have given me the benefit of the doubt, and I worked with them twice. I know I'm not a chameleon actor. I have a type. I have a very ethnically ambiguous look to me. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I had to relocate again. It's a pretty nice apartment, right? I don't always get a lot of privacy because, some people want to play pool or they come in and whatnot. There's a little clubhouse over there. What was I saying? Oh, yes. I felt like I was wasting money on these acting coaches who they try to play this idea that, they're the successful ones. They have experience in the industry of filming, and it's really, and to keep it short, because this video is just an introduction to me and my mindset, and I can always dive deeper into it if you guys want. So basically, I was in my late 20s by the time I got out of the Marine Corps, and I already felt like I was able to do action and stuff. But where I was, in Arizona, they're not really looking for someone like me. I think they want a very commercial look. One of the things that's a deterrent is my tattoos. I am also a very big, kind of a masculine guy. I don't have a commercial look.
I'm very ethnically ambiguous. Like, I understand, I'm not blaming anybody, but it's just, I remember in 2019, my first serious acting role was as an extra in a classroom for a Hallmark movie called Sister of the Bride that was filming in Cathedral City, which was maybe like 30 minutes from base. And I was there for 6 hours, and it was cool, but of course they want me to cover up my tattoos. I had to wear like some bright, happy colors. I had my fade still. I mean, I still do now, but I wore like a purple checkered shirt, but I was just like a guy. It could have been any male, but the talent agencies I would talk to, they were not always looking. Actually, a lot of them were not trying to build leading men, because I wanted to be a leading man. I thought I was funny. I still think I'm quite funny. I have a good look. I have a good skill set, because let's be honest, how many times have we all seen films with people that really have no business being in front of the camera, but they got it because of another skill set they have, whether they're an athlete, a singer, or in very few cases, it's like a social media influencer. So, one of my favorite actors I don't think it's really either of those. It's a Korean actor named Ma Dong-seok, or his American name is Don Lee. He's a boxer and a personal trainer, and he was doing indie films for many years in Korea. And he was always kind of, he's a big, brutish guy. He doesn't have the quintessential handsome K-pop look. He was a bruiser in real life, kind of some tummy, big arms, and he was a boxing trainer, but he owned that as part of his brand, and he's been doing it for so many years where he becomes a veteran actor, and then he got to be in a movie called Train to Busan, which was a big international success. Eventually, he used that fame to start producing his own action film starring him, and he kind of owns up that his ailments, because I know he also has some injuries on his knees, and he's not the fastest, but he punches really hard. Kind of parallels me a little bit. And then his big American debut was Marvel's Eternals, playing Gilgamesh. Now, I see actors fan cast themselves as superheroes. A lot of the most famous actors that play these comic book characters, they really don't vouch for themselves. They're pretty unfamiliar with the lore. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. was campaigning himself to be Iron Man, or other actors that were campaigning themselves. So when Don Lee got to be on Marvel, he was cast as Gilgamesh, not like Captain America or anything mainstream, but Chloe Zhao, the director, she kind of changed the character a bit to give him more of a hand-to-hand combat background, which I thought was really cool because that sticks with his brand. And he's playing like basically, oh good, dog's barking. Basically, what I liked about Ma Dong-seok is that he was a powerhouse of a guy, but his personality was cute. So I empathize with that because I'm kind of like a teddy bear in real life too. So, dialing back, that's how I saw myself. And no one in the independent circuit in Arizona really had roles for me that fit my strengths. Whoever usually casts me, it's usually playing a character type. A gangster, a post-apocalyptic, marauder type, cowboy hitman. Those are fine. But I felt like I had a little bit too much depth in real life. I wanted to showcase what I could do as an actor and as a leading man. So that's why I started directing and producing my own feature films. And a lot of them are very low budget. The last two I think are pretty solid and have really good rewatchability. And my whole goal is that I put in the work, I put in the reps. I don't expect handouts. I invite people who I think fit, who are maybe underutilized, and I try to write good characters for everyone, whether they're good guys or bad guys. Even if they're in like one scene, I try to edit it in a way where I split their scenes and kind of divide them around the whole movie so they feel like they're part of the story more. And that's been my recipe. And I'm going to keep doing that until someone eventually, my mindset is this. I don't have millions of followers on Instagram, nor am I a Nepo baby. I'm an outsider. Yet I've been very fortunate to have some pretty big names, mostly on social media. Other people famous through like sports or whatnot really like my work, and they've been collaborating with me. And then they bring their audience to watch. And the more I put the reps in, the more I'm taken seriously. And eventually, I don't have this perfectionistic idea of, oh, I got to spend 2 years making this one movie that's probably going to end up on Tubi or Amazon Prime making the exact same money as anyone else. Or I could just go in to a project already knowing what it's going to look like, how it's going to be shot. I direct how I edit, so I'm very time efficient. That's one of the biggest compliments I've got, is that I work fast, because everyone has shit that we got to do. And, you know, I'm not out here making Avengers, but I am making something very entertaining, and I try to at least have some heart into it. So my goal is eventually, I hope, whether I make enough Amazon or Tubi movies, that someone's gonna be like, who's this Fernando Lopez guy? And he keeps making all these movies without our help. It would be kind of cool if Netflix hit me up. One of the cool things about being self-producing and a do-it-yourself filmmaker is that I control the IP. I didn't expect The Rendezvous to have a sequel, nor was I expecting it to be this mini Mission Impossible type franchise. It's not really a franchise, but you know, I borrow elements of Korean action films, very down and dirty street level action, same with Daredevil and Punisher, but I put a little comedic spin to it. I also kind of poke fun at my image, being, you know, this buff dude, but I got weak knees and back issues, so I own up to that. And also in my movies, I don't get the girl. Most filmmakers, they like to kind of formulate a plot because they want to get a hall pass to get the hot girl to kiss them or have a weird, inappropriate sex scene, which shows no artistic merit except for more like, yeah, look at me, I still got it. I don't do that. I think it's disingenuous. I'm very coy because I know I'm doing this. No one's paying me to do this. Me and my DP, we will go drive to where certain people live. We will go to LA and film with whichever individual has a big following or has a stunt background, and we meet them halfway. So the deal is, you know, instead of paying all this money for them to come here, we go to them, and we just make the story in a way where my character has to go to Los Angeles. And that's how I made Rendezvous Vendetta. It's kind of like putting a puzzle piece together, you know? Anyways, this is a lot for an introductory video. Let me try that again. This was a lot to throw at you guys for a, you know, introduction to me. But I have a lot. I have definitely a lot on my mind. I have a lot of philosophies, a lot of mindset stuff about my grind. If you have any specific questions about why I got into acting, why I got into directing, why boxing, my transition from the Marine Corps to civilian life, what my goals are, I don't know. I'm gonna start posting here more often, and maybe some workouts. And I think this will be a good thing. So, thank you. If you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in to my YouTube channel. If you want more of this and real talk, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Don't forget to check out my Instagram page at Big Fern is my name. That's where you can see all my shenanigans, all my posts, trailers, behind the scenes stuff, and just another place you can see more of me. So thank you so much for watching, and welcome to my channel.